Hello everyone, welcome to Lore Lines, episode 35. How was everyone this week? Ayumi is here. Bonnie is dead. Bonnie's been doing Ultimate, everybody. Neela too? Meme around. Yeah, she's a ghost. Maybe you'll be a ghast. Vampire. Ugh. Okay. That's really funny. Well, yeah, everyone, I hope you had a great week. We are missing a few people. It looks like Coberon is not here at the moment, but I think he intended to be. And then the other two are just having health issues, so welcome to the party. I love these bats Bonnie put in. They are cute. Yeah, so today we're discussing Edda, a lovely little doe of an adventurer we meet in A Realm Reborn. That turned out well. Oh, just a second. It's always something, guys. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're inaudible.
Huh?
They cannot. Oh, wait.
They can't hear you.
Wait.
Maybe?
There it is.
Hey,
It
do we
feats.
do it?
Huzzah.
Cool.
Oh my god.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know, chat. 'cause
Yeah,
we had to
immediately.
Thank you.
That really helps. Oh my gosh. Actually, I did nothing. I went into the little cog in OBS and clicked cancel.
What?
Wait,
I literally
so
changed
none of
no
us were
settings.
talking?
Yeah, earlier you were completely dead on OBS.
Yeah.
It's good now. I see bars.
Yeah, they could only hear Foul for the start.
Yeah, so it's like weird, awkward delays, and then me talking to like shadows.
Anyway,
Bold of you to assume we have shadows.
Anyway, I was
all
thanking
of you
everybody.
to assume that
and
we
they were
have
responding.
like professional anything. Anyway, Edda, yes, Edda this week, Edda Pureheart. So those of you who have done Tamtara Deepcroft or any of the preliminary quests in like Ulda or Sestasha probably know of a certain adventuring group that kind of did not meet a very pleasant end at the end of the Tamtara Deepcroft. You first met them actually in the introductory quests in the Ulda storyline. Actually, no, it was the Sestasha storyline that you met them, and then you met them later in the Ulda storyline. They were adventurers just like you, and they wanted to be just like you. Unfortunately, through a couple of incidents, one of their members met an untimely end, and certain events happened, which led to more events. And yeah, we'll go through that today. We're happy to go through it. It's a fun little story. It's a fun little occult classic that Final Fantasy is kind of written into several different avenues of both dungeons and deep dungeons.
Neela says the most tragic thing is that since audio wasn't sorted, chat didn't get to hear me sing the technical difficulties song.
That's right.
You guys can confirm. I was.
Yes. Well, I guess I'll throw us over to the slideshow. Amy?
Yes,
It's okay, chat. I'm sure we'll have technical difficulties again someday.
It'll happen.
it'll happen.
Bonnie's over there.
The Tale of Edda Pureheart. Not so pure, though. But that was her first name. Her first and last name.
I like to imagine they actually have names like that. Of course they don't.
Everyone names their character different. This NPC is no different. So she was a midlander from Abeloth's Spine. She was barely 16. She was she was only 16 when she decided to leave her life behind. She was basically at that time sweeping dirt floors and scrubbing loincloths, and decided to become an adventurer and leave that life behind. She left with a childhood friend and fiance named Aver, and they set off then to become adventurers. You actually meet Aver with her later, along with her adventuring group.
Yeah, I was gonna say something, Bonnie, but
Absolutely.
I don't know what you guys are talking about over there.
sorry. She said in chat, "Scrubbing loincloths. This really is a spoopy month episode."
Oh, yes.
It's almost as horrifying as that sheet you have to scrub in the the
Or
Virgil.
when you have to oil that guy in Quarry Mill.
I don't know about
I
you
have
guys,
removed
but that
that
part's
memory
funny.
from my mind.
Wax on, wax off.
I'm. Colruyt says I'm.
It's true.
Back to this. Edda was also a member of a group of adventurers traveling in Eorzea to gain glory and fame, just like the Warrior of Light. She was aspiring to be us. She aspired to be strong and brave and just kind of be a shining example of what adventurers and heroes were. Unfortunately, she was young and inexperienced. She was met exhausted first at the entrance of the Sestasha dungeon, had to run to town to buy potions for her group that was most likely unsuccessful in their mission. And anyone can jump in by any time, by the way.
It is interesting. I had wondered about the potion thing because I didn't really notice it the very first time through playing. I don't think very much. But then later on, coming back on other characters, I was like, "Do you really need potions in here?"
She was not very skilled as a healer. She was a conjurer, but due to her lack of skill, she needed extra help.
Which is pretty horrifying, right? Like, no,
Which
I don't.
Valuable
Listen,
lesson.
even raiders need potions. What does that tell you?
Well, these
that
were
we're all
these
drug
were
addict.
these were health potions, not like dex
Get high
fixtures.
on murder potion.
Just bring in the Red Bull.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe she accidentally popped a tincture of strength when she meant to use,
A mega
I don't know, a
ether.
mana
A
potion.
mega ether. Yeah.
Took a dexterity potion when her actual stats are geared more towards mind and intelligence,
Rip.
and piety. Going off of that, yeah, you can go. Yep, there you go. So we meet them again for a second time outside the Tamtara Deepcroft. And they're seen outside the entrance there. And after the Warrior of Light completes their mission there, which we went from Sestasha, I think, to we didn't go to Coppermill Mines. I think it was the second one was Tamtara Deepcroft, wasn't it? So we went from one to that next, and then Copperbill was the third after that, right?
Yeah.
So after the Warrior of Light completes the mission there, Edda and her team are last seen at the Carline Canopy back at Gridania, missing their leader, Aver.
Well, most of them.
Most of them.
They do indeed comment. Stop carrying that head around with you.
The group breaks out into an argument, and they reveal that Aver was killed on the mission into the Deepcroft, which the team are also quick to blame Edda and her lack of healing skills before disbanding and going their separate ways. Bordering on grief, Edda had also kept Aver's head with her. So that was the beginning of a sign of madness during that quest line. It kind of spooked me out a little bit there. Like, why would you, as a healer, why would you keep someone's head unless you are really, really either one, attached to them, or two, you really hate that person and want to do something about it?
I was reminded after this sequence about how canonically we are not resurrecting after fights when we die. Like,
No, we're not.
we're not. We're just playing a game. But in real life, right, this can go south real quick.
Again.
Just imagining Warrior of Light's track record here is a little bit of a...
Listen, as the wall, we're pretty dumb.
I was gonna say, now you've got me thinking about the theories we've had about, oh, what if we die in Endwalker? And now I'm just imagining the scions like toting our body around. Oh, they'll be
Yes. Yes.
great. Which scion would keep which piece? I mean,
Well, we know which piece Graha would keep it at the very least.
Anyways, keeping the head, she is also stricken with grief at the fact of losing her best friend, her childhood friend, and her fiance. Later, she is seen in Ulda. I believe it's after Copperbell Mines or later on down the line. She meets the warrior face to face, and the warrior learns that Aver was her fiance then. We didn't learn about that back at the Carlin Canopy. We learned about it in Ulda. She had explained that that he had admired the Warrior of Light for all their achievements, motivating him to become one as well. She explains that upon taking a proper look at the warrior, she again felt motivated to become a strong adventurer before heading home to continue her training, whatever that is. She returned home to bury her whatever piece she had left of him. Before turning to madness, refusing to be parted with her beloved's head, and turned to forbidden arts from an ancient tome obtained in her travels. With this tome, she brought Aver back from the dead. I would like to know where she got that forbidden tome, if they could not get anywhere near all the way through the Tamtara Deepcroft.
you know, that's a good question. Who would have a little stake in creating chaos and giving a grieving woman, the incentive to go over the edge a little bit and do something that ends up, causing some trouble for Gridani in general and the Warrior of Light in particular, and Tamtara Heart, which we'll get to.
Was she just like that innocent girl that went to the library and was like, can I borrow a book? And then just stepped into the forbidden section and yanked it?
Yeah, I will say, I'm not saying it's Ascian, but it could have been Ascian.
It could have been.
I don't think it could have been Ascian. I just think this girl was just a few crayons short of a full box.
So Mascot says, wouldn't it be the Necromancer?
We're getting to that. We're getting to that.
Quit skipping ahead, Mascot. Wait, Cobron's in chat.
Back to the Forbidden Tome thing. Again, I wonder where this comes from, because she brought him back from the dead as a sort of void scent. So you have to wonder what kind of tomes are out there and where they're kept that you can bring back people from the dead, turning them into void scent. Let's see. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So, yeah, this is what I call Pureheart no longer. She's no longer pure. So Edda becomes overcome with grief and begins sending invitations out to literally everyone for it's wedding invitations, basically. She's back into the Tamtara Deepcroft, and she has Aver there, Aver being a demon at this point, and she is going to be, quote unquote, married to the demon. So sending a suspicious wedding invitation out to Payo Rayo, one of the former members of her group. He's one of the recipients. He finds this extremely suspicious and teams up with the Wall to put an end to Edda's plans. So, but venturing back into the Deepcroft, you can imagine how terrifying that is for him. The Warrior of Light has learned that she had performed a ritual to bring back a demonic version of Aver. After the Warrior of Light disposes of the demon, Edda panics, and her robe catches on fire from the candles around the arena. She slips and tumbles down off the edge there into the abyss with an eerie smile on her face. Who remembers that attack? The Red Wedding.
I do.
That was a callback, wasn't it?
It was.
Oh yeah.
So during the encounter, she actually puts Pio Reo in the center of the arena and then just keeps calling forth demons. And they're not exactly void sent, but just like... I'm not sure at this point. They could be void sent, they couldn't be. Whatever tome that she got a hold of is questionable, and where she got a hold of it is also questionable because they look like void sent, but maybe they're not.
There's a mixture of void sent and undead, and early in ARR, these were not really differentiated very well. Now we know the difference, but early on, it was kind of like demons and goblins.
Oh, don't worry, we'll get to that too. Edda.
Not to mention, I believe we have some lore now about from the Crystal Tower actually saying that in this battle, the Void Sense would be invited through that Void gate, and then they could, after once if they fought on Zandy's side, they could then possess the corpses of the fallen. So that it's not a completely unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we'll get to that in a little bit here. Data. There's a few things at the end that I'm going to go through.
Data had asked, isn't there a second party that dies also? Just for anyone who's not watching, just listening, who's in chat.
Yep, there is. So going back to Edda again. So after the Warrior of Light reports back to Pio Reo, go ahead and go to the next slide. The Warrior of Light returns to Pio Reo and sees an apparition of Edda smiling back at him. Hold on, before you go next. After the Warrior of Light reports back to Pio Reo, informing him of Edda's fate, Pio sees an apparition of Edda in high contrast next to a lit brazier, slowly lifting her head to reveal a wicked smile. Pio runs off in terror with the Warrior of Light returning to look at what frightened him and seeing nothing. Go.
Yeah, it almost seems like an echo vision or something.
I love it.
That's a really crazy picture.
Isn't it? It was terribly creepy, even for just Realm Reborn standards.
Absolutely.
Bonnie says 99% of her FC doing Palace of the Dead. Oh no, she's hot.
Well, who knows how old she was when she was in Palace of the Dead, though. Because this is when she was 16. And then again, dilation.
Undead demon monster.
Time dilation and time shenanigans in the source. Going to the next one. So now we're going into Palace of the Dead. So sometime later, after the Warrior of Light ventures into Palace of the Dead, Edda's spirit, now wearing an all-black outfit and an eye patch, now being referred to as Edda Blackbosom, begins to observe them. Upon reaching the 50th floor of the palace, Edda now confronts them in battle, stating that they have overstayed their welcome. After she is defeated, her spirit reappears with her original appearance. Recognizing the Warrior of Light, she expresses confusion as to where she is, as the last thing she remembers is falling and seeing a figure in black.
Do we have anything telling us why she's wearing an eye patch now? I'm very curious and very suspicious.
Rule of cool.
Not exactly the rule of cool. She had fallen from a tremendous height. And I kind of want to go. We're gonna go over Palace of the Dead here too.
Well,
this isn't just Edda.
She's a black mage now, technically, right? Or at least a thaumaturge.
Oh, that makes sense.
We could consider her a necromancer at this point.
So she may just have a materia stuck in her eye socket then.
Mm-hmm.
Very well could. I would consider her a necromancer because of the way she brings things back.
Working on the black arts equals pointy hat and eye patch.
So you could probably consider her the first Reaper.
Except she doesn't predate Garling angry farmers.
That's right. Well, I mean, she was from Abelathia's spine, so it's getting there. She wasn't farming. She was scrubbing loincloths.
Oh no.
Her spirit vanished, leaving behind a ring. Go ahead and go to the next one. So, after leaving Palace of the Dead, the Warrior of Light takes the ring to Pio-Reo, who is still haunted by his experiences in the Tamtara Deepcroft. His facial animations, by the way, during this quest are great, just as terrifying as Edda's. He recognizes it as Edda's engagement ring, and asks the Warrior of Light for help in locating Aver's matching ring. With both rings, Pio-Reo and the Warrior take them to have a small memorial ceremony outside of Limsa Lominsa, hoping to finally lay Edda and Aver's spirits to rest. After the ceremony, the Warrior of Light hears Edda's voice thanking them. So it's a kind of a happy ending, I want to say. And I forget how and where we find Aver's ring at, because you still have to go through 50 floors of Palace of the Dead to find Edda.
I'm pretty sure it was in some stream out behind Buscarn's Druthers or kind of near there.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
River and Gridania.
It's been so long, Jesus. And for all these years, I thought she was. All these years, I thought she was Edda Black Blossom, and then you said bosom earlier, and I was like, oh.
Just today?
Yeah. Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Bonnie, no.
No, Bonnie.
Pureheart, Blackheart. You missed the bosom?
Yes, I
Very
did.
un-Bonnie.
She has too much loot in her head.
Nah, it's just the wrong kind of booba for me to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
I find this entire quest line really interesting from a narrative perspective because basically it's showing the dark side of love. Oh, I'm in love with him. Well, I've done some really terrible things as a result. Yeah. Oh my God.
And here we have also a tale of a girl's descent to madness, from aspiring adventurer to tragic loss to wanting to see her lover again. And as a result, she turns to forbidden arts to bring him back, and it's not quite the same. I still would like to know where she got that scroll from.
Here's another narrative parallel for you, if you like that kind of thing, which I do. You know, she loses someone she cares deeply about. The ancients lose a bunch of their loved ones and families due to sacrifice. They try to move on, but they end up finding themselves in a place where they want to get them back. It just seems kind of familiar. And I also find that bit at the end with the ceremony and the putting to rest. I find that very not only poignant, but also very like, I wonder if that's going to be a thing that we do, you know?
And the ceremony itself was terrifying enough with all the red candles out there and all of the kind of mummies and undead kind of crawling their way towards Pio-Reo and him being just tied down. During the encounter, we had to consistently fight them and beat down the undead before they reached Pyoreo and sucked the life force out of him.
Even more, in the last one, I believe Void Scents spawn around the outside edge of the arena and do a bunch of AoEs too. So there's sort of a Void connection there too. It's really cool. It's very spooky.
The whole dungeon in Tamtara Hard is very, very good.
I'm a big fan of this quest line in general. I mean, all the things that ARR has done to, like, make you realize that normal people don't survive the way you have. You know, it really hammers home, like, this notion of maybe don't go adventuring if you're not prepared.
I'm going to read off the actual description of the Tamtara Hard. When the guiding light of one's life is extinguished, it takes uncommon strength of spirit to clamber out of the black pits of despair. Those who want for resilience may yet be pulled up by a friend's helping hand. But what becomes of a broken-hearted maiden who has neither the strength nor the succor to overcome the darkness that threatens to consume her? The answer shall be revealed through the tragic tale that begins with the arrival of a single letter. So with that description, we know even then that she had been lost to madness before the letter was even sent. It's scary enough to know that she had resummoned her dead lover as a void scent, but trying to get married to the void scent, to the demon itself, and actually send out wedding invitations. Creepy.
Yeah, it's very it's very interesting from a some part of her was obviously trying to recapture the past, but it was not right and it was not the same.
No. Go ahead and go to the next part. So what all happened? Why was she found in the Palace of the Dead? Why did she go from one place to another? Well, the answer comes from one person, one entity. It's known to all to Edda that she died from the incident in the Deep Croft. She fell over, she plunged into the abyss to unknown territory. But in the Palace of the Dead, we see a hooded figure, a cloaked figure, controlling her. And he announces himself as Nybeth Obdlord. Exactly what is his purpose? Why is he here? You fight him on floor 100 in Palace of the Dead. For those that can find a party and manage to fight their way to the final floor. Edda is floor 50. Nybeth is floor 100.
Oh, he's fun solo.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, fun. I will say, though, both the floor 50 and floor 100 in Palace of the Dead have absolutely fantastic, wonderful musical themes, and I enjoy them a lot.
Oh, yeah, they definitely do. Yeah.
Yes. We're about to get to that, too. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on this dialogue. You took this screenshot for a reason, and it might be hard to read because of the filter, but I think not. My Edda would never be blinded to the truth by some starry-eyed fantasy. No, a spirit as strong as hers would never fade so meekly into nothingness.
There's a reason I took all these screenshots.
So, snatched up from wherever she fell.
That's right.
Eisenhower style.
So, Nybeth Obdlord. He first appeared in Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together. He appears as a withered corpse, dressed in tattered robes with the remnants of a red headband wrapped around his head. Despite his decrepit state, he still has a white mustache and a beard, and half his jaw is still attached. When the Warrior of Light enters the Palace of the Dead, Nybeth senses Edda's soul being connected to them in some way, and sends her to confront them as a test. The Warrior of Light defeats Edda on the 50th floor of the palace, freeing her soul, and eventually confronts Nybeth himself on the 100th floor. Nibeth himself was a powerful necromancer and lich in another world, obsessed with overcoming death and resurrecting the dead. Traveling to Heidelin through unknown means. By the way, unknown means. That's sus. He set up base in the Palace of the Dead within the Black Shroud, where he continued his dark experiments on raising the dead. After numerous failures, he chose Edda as his next subject, believing that her strong soul would be ideal for his work. Although he was successful in partially resurrecting her, he was unsatisfied by her condition and puzzled why her soul still seemed to be yearning to pass on, not understanding why anyone would willingly choose death. What?
Also, how very Findaniel.
Yeah, it is, but like the notion of he's a crossover character, right? And he's a crossover character from obviously a Matsuno game too. But he came from another world through unknown means and made his home in Palace of the Dead. What? So now we're dealing with parallel dimensions before even Shadowbringers was brought up. Now, when you defeat...
I was thinking shards too.
Exactly. So are we dealing with a denizen of the 13th? I don't know. It could be from something even more beyond that.
It's true. We have lots of world travel and shard travel going on in this story. Back when this stuff was released, we were still in a phase in ARR where some of us were wondering what they would end up doing with this notion of shards, whether it would just be like the worlds of the other Final Fantasy titles or something deeper. And they went in a totally different direction, which is awesome. But at that point, it wouldn't have been that strange to see just a Tactics Ogre reference just thrown in as an alt, an AU.
Of course. And, I mean, we have, like Mascot said, we have a lot of different crossovers to thank for that. There's a lot of Matsuno crossovers. There's a lot of near crossovers. The game has basically become a giant theme park. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can create for some very unique encounters, such as this. Now, Tactics Ogre itself, I believe, was like a strategy game.
Yeah, it's a tactical game, just like FFT, that kind of game. It's one of the first ones and what it was referenced by.
And written by Matsuno, who also, of course, wrote Tactics and Final Fantasy XII, which are also some of the fan favorite games. I'm sure that was his first opportunity to bring Matsuno into the game and kind of use some of his material. Go ahead and go ahead.
It created a sort of a new storyline, starting with this character and I assume some events from Tactics Over. I haven't had a chance to play it myself, and then becoming its own thing as it goes into Final Fantasy XIV.
I want to take a slight detour just to show people.
Go ahead. Oh, we're going into actual Tactics game.
I think this is a PSP remaster.
Uphill battle involving a necromancer with skeleton archers and ghost mages.
You might recognize the Triforce style magic glyphs. I
mean, you can play it on your phone, Kolrath. It's called War of the... What is it? Oh, God, I don't remember.
War of the Lions or something?
Well, War of the Lions, but...
I hate how Google Images never actually just open up.
War of the Visions. Final Fantasy Brave Exvius War of the Visions.
War of the Lions is on mobile as well.
Yes. War of the Visions is a very good game, by the way. I highly suggest it for people that want a Final Fantasy tactics style game on mobile. So Nybeth Ogdlord's many dark creations. By the way, that right picture there is his concept art from Tactics Ogre. So Edda wasn't the only one who Nybeth experimented on. Many other corpses and cadavers were exhumed from across the Eorzea and brought to the palace, including some familiar faces that the wall has encountered. These corpses have a low spawn rate, but will also appear in the later floors as wandering enemies, each having their own unique story. You will not encounter these guys from floors 1 through 100. These will appear through 101 through 200. And you might recognize a few of these faces.
Oh yeah, the first few I saw, I was like, "Wait, what the heck is this?"
I'll go over them. Don't worry.
Absolutely.
First off, we have Folks of the Mist. For those that don't remember him, if you were training to be a lancer, this was the dark-skinned. He was the dark-skinned Elzen who constantly threatened you when you were at the Lancers Guild trying to be. Or he was around you met him around level 5. No, I think he was
10 or
prevalent.
Maybe
yeah,
10.
It's like 10,
Yeah.
15. Yeah, the Guildmaster was trying to stop him constantly. He appeared in the Lancer Quest arc. He challenged the leaders of the guild at the Wailing Barracks, I think, to duels in a bid to prove his superiority. He later relates to the adventurer that he had once been a member of the guild himself, and that he and his comrades had skimmed from the coffers to make ends meet. When he had expressed a desire that they confess as a group, his friends turned on him and let him take the fall alone. He accuses the guild as a whole of cowardice, learning too late that his bare-faced aggression is weaker sort of courage than the composure and resolve practiced by those who are true to the guild's teachings. And the realization sends him into a violent denial, backing away from the adventurer and over the edge of a nearby cliff. And in the Palace of the Dead, he is known as a Duskwhite Lancer. You'll occasionally see him. And he will come up with the quote, "Impossible, my courage is absolute."
That's a familiar.
The second one you might see, Janremy Blackheart. He is the... If you also have started in Gridania, you might also recognize him as the one who tried to steal the Chocobo egg. The Chocobo named Leia from Moogle's Gift Mounts. The egg, sired by a descendant of the great Oranos, Mount of Beldrent the de Dorandare during the Autumn War, and the pride of Ishgardian stock. He would have fetched a hefty sum on the black market were it not for the timely intervention of Kuplu Kopo, who took the egg and vanished. By the time the adventurer finds the Moogle, Janremy's band of thieves close in and attack. However, with Kuplu's aid, the adventurer slays the thieves and returns the egg to Moogle's gift before any harm can come to it. You actually fight this guy right on top of the Tamtara Deepcroft. His quote down there is, "I must have that Chocobo egg. It is the only way." Going down a bit to Garibald the Fargon. This is the Ulda quest line. Garibald appears in the Uldan introduction to the main scenario as the ringleader of a band of thieves responsible for stealing the crown of the Sultana Nanamo Ulnamo. This is going to be at like very end of the old level 15, right before you can start going to other cities. His ultimate ambition is to ransom its return to the disgraced Sultan Sworn, on whose watch it was stolen, with the ransom taking the form of a satchel contained within the inner vaults of the city. Owain, loyal but desperate, delivers the satchel to Garibald, only to find that it contains the traitor's spurn, an alchemical mixture with the power to create zombies. Famed as the doom of Olda's fallen sister city, Silde. This plot to create an undying army is thwarted when Papashan leads the Sultansworn in an attack on the thieves in time to resecure both the crown and the elixir. Garibald is slain in battle. This is, I think, one of the first times we've seen NPCs actually, when we try to apprehend them, they are instead slain. Because all the time before, when we charge in and try and stop people, they are apprehended and taken in by the local authorities.
From a world building perspective, I actually like that, because usually that's what happens is the authorities take you to jail. But some of them, they don't go down without a fight.
Yeah. Some people stole the Sultana's crown and are gonna get a knife.
Yeah. His quote down there was, "I am undying. Was it the elixir?" Don't know. Could very well be.
That's not concerning at all.
Next one is Baneris of the Deep. Baneris is a member of the Serpent Reavers, pirate turncoats in thrall to the Sahagin primal Leviathan that appear in the Leminson introduction in the main scenario. Through the months leading up to the story, he masterminds the abduction of a Leminson citizens to be tempered by Leviathan. Diverting the attention of the Yellow Jackets, his group attacks the ill-defended hamlet of Swiftperch. However, through the efforts of the adventurer, this attack is foreseen and thwarted. Baneris is slain. However, it appears even free of Leviathan's grasp, his soul has not yet found peace. His quote down there is, "You hear that, lads? The sea's calling me home."
With tempering and marks on souls, that's a concerning thing to say. Not gonna lie.
Exactly. This next group is the one that Data was referring to. This is what happened to the group of adventurers in Ulda, the group opposite those of Edda. So we're speaking of Dolores Bear, Kikina, and Imanafa. This trio appears early in the combined main scenario, competing with Edda's party and the adventurer themselves to take on the job of Sestasha Seagrot. Edda is sent to acquire provisions for the excursion, but can only secure a few potions. Edda arrives back at Sestasha's entrance, only to have her party, including her fiancé, Aver, berate her for her poor management of their resources and lacking skill as a healer. Nearby, Alianne sits with her grandfather, Isildur, at a campfire. However, despite being eager for fame and fortune, they are in no rush to charge in unprepared. Because of Edda's delay, the adventurer that would one day be known as the Warrior of Light is the first through the Seagrot, likely causing her further torment from allies. Back at the Drowning Wench, the party of Dolores Bear, who had missed their chance to take the job, redouble their commitment to becoming great adventurers, inspired by the stranger who had gotten the job done, to the acclaim of Baderon. A similar job appears immediately thereafter, as the Adventurers Guild seeks a party to rid the Tamtaric Deepcroft of the unwelcome presence of a cult. Alianne and Isildur enter the crypts first, only to have an elementary binder almost cost the latter of his life. They retreat as quickly as they came. Isildur sits eating some freshly pickled fruit to regain his strength. Dolores Bear's party arrives shortly before the adventurers' own party and wishes them luck in being the first through the crypts. Yet again, the one-day warrior of light is first through the depths, clearing the presence of the lambs of Dalamud and the abomination they had summoned from beyond the void. Back at the Carline Canopy, it's revealed that Edda's group stole into Deepcroft after all, but the Aver had been decapitated after running out of range of Edda's casting. Oof!
I hate it when tanks or DPS be like, where were the heals? But they weren't in range.
You know, that is a curious thought, actually. Like, maybe she wasn't that bad. She just needed ethers, and the dude kept line of sighting her.
That's kind of, especially compounded with the, the harsh and unkind language that they tended to use on her, like blaming her for everything. I could definitely see her not truly being the problem there. Can only feed into the madness if you're already doing everything right and you're trying to figure out what you're doing wrong.
Don't join toxic parties, people.
That's even a regular problem for regular players, too. Like, the healer can't heal the other player if they run out of range for healing spells. So it, again, becomes like an Edda situation.
You have to resurrect him from the...
Let's see. Blaming her, Pio and Leavine disband the party and leave her behind, clutching her fiancé's disembodied head and begging for forgiveness. Not to let another opportunity pass them by, Dolores Bear's party races on towards Ul'dah and takes a job to clear the Copperbell mines of the recent and terrifying appearance of Hectacontir slaves that had somehow survived entombment during a rebellion centuries ago. The adventurer arrives to find only Eliane and Isildur, who relate that the party's reckless optimism that had led to their deaths at the hands of the gigantes. When the job is done, Edda finds the one-day warrior of light and informs them that she hasn't given up and will start her path anew start her path as an adventurer anew. They got their head smashed in, by the way. Is their actual correct text.
It's interesting to me because I found the difference between when we speak with Edda after all of that, and she's like, I'm going to go become an adventurer, I'm going to do it right, etc. And then we see her in Tamtara Hard, that quest line. Something has definitely changed between the two. And I really wonder what it...
Are you familiar with the Red Mage questline?
Mostly, but it's been a little while.
I'm using it as reference because the fact remains that some bodies are more capable of weaving destructive magics than beneficial ones. And so the fact that she is a necromancer thaumaturge in Tamtara Hard has the whole dungeon on lockdown and every single minion is hers, might just mean she's more talented in the dark side.
That would be fitting as well with like the theming of her name changing from Pureheart to Black Book, or her title.
Yeah.
I like
that. That is a very good one.
For those who haven't played Red Mage, it's a pretty good quest line. It's not my favorite, but the Heaven's Ward sect, I think is where that stuff goes down. Although I've only done it once, so forgive me, but I think it's the 60 to 70 group that does that, and then the 70 to 80, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Somebody can correct me. There's a young lady we recruit who things happen to go along those lines.
Their quotes down there are, from Dolores Bear's corpse, we said we'd make a name for ourselves. From Kikina, what is this place? Where are the others? And Eminanfa, oh Dolores, even in death, I will always.
That's interesting, because I didn't recognize them by name, but when you said Kikina's line, I was like, oh, I've seen that.
This next one is very interesting, and it's not on the list. I wanted to include it, but I put it in a few surprises because you guys should kind of There's some research outside of Palace of the Dead that should be done, but I'm going to include it anyways.
Sounds fun. Let's do it.
So this is a question mark for now. I'll get to it. We'll call it an Immortal Flame recruit for right now. The face and outfit of the Immortal Flame isn't very distinct from a dozen sword fodder NPCs, yet he would stand alone if not for someone worthy of note. Some have speculated that he is the Flame Private tempered by Ifrit, which is possible, but notice the phrase, my men. Who would a Flame Private command? And I noticed that the names that he says upon his death, Clausvio and Dava. As far as you can recall, the pair has no presence in A Realm Reborn, only version 1.0. They were present in Jagged Crest Cave during the assault on Castrum Novum, where the Warriors of Light destroyed the lunar transmitter prior to slaying Nail Van Darnus at the Riven Road. They were led by Flame Commander Jax Ryder, known by the codename Mad Snake in the English version, and through an echo sequence in the ARR main scenario, revealed that Jax died in the Calamity. Ryder didn't look like the base kind of generic flame soldier with a goatee and facial tattoo. He has a goatee and facial tattoo, so they'd be kind of close. There is a very striking similarity between the two, so it very well could be Jax Ryder from 1.0, because there are a few NPCs that you do meet in Palace of the Dead that are from 1.0. So that was just kind of like a cameo that I kind of liked including.
That's kind of cute that they did.
You'll have to go back and look at Jax Ryder to see what I'm talking about. Going down again, Una Tayun, Satsvlo, and Persevanes. This trio was among the established members of Minfilia's organization, the Path of the 12, in version 1.0. Though at the time they came off as dismissive of the newly come adventurer, they maintained their loyalty to the organization and each other to the very end. Una Tayun arrives at the Waking Sands' new location in Vesper Bay early in the story, frustrated that she can barely remember her own past, and more frustrated to find that no one seems to remember her at all. By the time the Warrior of Light slays the primal Ifrit, Una has reunited with her long-lost friends, but all three would later perish in the raid on the science base led by Olivia Saz Unius. And their quotes are, I finally remember who I am, from the Conjurer. Una, Persevanes, where did you, from the Archer. We must protect the Waking Sands, from the Pugilist. They were also the bodies that you helped load into the caravan, by the way, during that. Not just the Sylph, but those like 5 or 6 bodies that you loaded up during the quest. Yep. Yes, there was. At the little church in Eastern Thanalan, there were some minor dialogue, I think, of graves being unturned. So, with the Palace of the Dead's location in Gilmora is actually quite unique in that it has access to Thanalan and Limsa proper, in very close proximity. And we know that Dibeth is a necromancer. It is not unfeasible for him to go out late at night and go grave robbing. So
I did find it amusing. I was just going to say that I did find it amusing that Edda being in Tamtara, which is part of Gilmore, is it not? Just basically fell into his lap. Literally.
Well, Palace of the Dead is also it's not just a burial chamber, but it's also kind of like a giant, like, body dump. Yes.
Spooky.
Or
Actually,
purified.
Yeah. The pure white down there really makes me think a lot of the burn. And if you get the gloom, it has this really eerie red glow. It's crazy. I need to
Good
finish
luck.
mine. I've had internet issues, so I couldn't. I need to see where I'm at.
The next one, Inquisitor Guillaume. This false inquisitor had infiltrated the respected ranks of Ishgard and sought to sow discord from within, levying false accusations and sending good men and women to their deaths. When he had turned these machinations on Francel de Haliente, Harchefant Greystone of House Forton, they sought the Warrior of Light to clear his friend's good name, leading to unveiling the heretic's schemes and his death by Guardian Steel. This was the heretic you fought in the Kurthus quest line, the blue-robed, black-haired one that you had to work with two houses to kind of take down at the very end of Snowcloak. His quote down there is, "The dragons will rend you asunder." So even in death, he still believes he can kill you.
Mascot said, "Oh God, there's so much sound skipping." Is that the stream or something else?
You know how those cyborgs are.
Thanks.
Love you.
Can a cast member double check the stream quality? We can continue on though.
You heard it too, but it happens to me every stream.
I mean, I can't check the sound quality when you guys stop talking.
Oh, that's true.
Well,
rewind.
I mean, we all got very thoughtful and concerned for a moment.
That's right.
Did you say Haliente?
I am not French. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Helenat.
There you go.
Helenat.
I'm not French either. I just speak.
I think the voice actors chose to say Hyanot, but I don't know for sure. It was in the Heavens.
Why would they mix Spanish in with it? Why? I don't know why you say Hyanart. I say goodbye.
Yeah, the double L is a Y, right?
That's Spanish. That's not French.
I'm sure it's just the VA, but Haliente.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all Greek to me.
I don't care. You guys can think of me what you will.
Oh, we don't think anything.
You're awesome.
We're just laughing at your expense.
I think it's impossible to get every name right in this game, so we may as well laugh about it.
It's true.
It's true.
Next one is Ungust. You guys may remember this guy.
Bad haircut.
You may remember him as that guy.
You may remember him as bad haircut.
Very hated.
Ungust was an unscrupulous merchant and human trafficker from Thanalan. First encountered harassing a desperate damsel in Ulda, and later found posing as a priest to abduct the downtrodden and sell them to the Amalja for tempering by their primal deity. After a failed operation by the Immortal Flames to dismantle this abduction ring, the soldiers, the Warrior of Light, and Ungust himself are presented as sacrifices to the Lord of the Inferno. However, when the Echo protects the adventurer from the Ifrit's primal's influence, the primal is slain, and Ungust is put to the sword with the rest of the unfortunate souls bound to the Ifrit's will. If you remember, we had a discussion, I think, after the battle on whether or not we should imprison them or kill them. And there was that kind of controversial discussion with the guard.
Yeah,
and then
I believe
at that point, when they're saying this just too far gone.
Yeah, and that was, I believe, at the point after that, when we returned to the Waking Sands, is when Thancred pulls us aside and is like, yo, so you should know this. When people are tempered, it can't be fixed.
Yeah, that was, I think, our first example of like, if they're tempered, if they are bound to a primal's will, they cannot be saved, even though we haven't learned of Porxies at this point, and they must die.
Yeah.
It was certainly a trial by fire for us.
It was also, listen, you're new to the team. We'll handle it, but it sucks, and we don't have a choice.
It's one of those set up nice and early so that when we finally, after several expansions, have some way to possibly save some of them, it's so huge.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. I mean, we remember what happened during Stormblood, during the sequence with the Lamia tribe. Just,
yeah,
they're tempered, guys. Like, things are fine until they summon their god in your meeting chamber.
Yep. His quote down there is, I've been executed. The next one is codename Hummingway. He only had a very small presence in a very short cutscene when the Garlean Empire was actually introduced. Codename Hummingway was an Eorzean spy within the 14th Legion of the Garlean Imperial Army, serving at Castrum Occidens in Lanosia. In the 5th year of the 7th Umbral era, the Legion once again moved to conquer Eorzea in earnest, but just as Hummingway confirmed this, he was struck down by Nero Tolskeva, having been tipped off by the Frumentari Garlean intelligence. His quote is, Al amigo, it burns. He was the one in the Garlean outfit that had like the buzz cut, braided hair, and small ponytail at the back. It was the small conversation with back and forth with his the other soldier about what Baelsar is, or who Baelsar is, and what they thought was going to happen with the Ultima weapon. And then Nero kind of walked up and said, this is...
I got you.
Yep.
Sorry.
And then he just executed him right there. Next one is everyone's favorite Lalafell. Teleji Adeleji.
It's nice having him in there because we're like, yes, he's definitely...
Teleji Adeleji was a member of the Syndicate and owner of the Platinum Mirage Casino. After the calamity, dwindling profits led him to attempt to claim the old Omega weapon, an elegant monstrosity buried beneath Cartno Flats, in a grand scheme had spun out of control after the attempted assassination of Sultana Nanamo ul Namo, which led to a swift execution at the hands of an enraged Rabban Alden. His quote down there is, no, stay back, not again. No, yes, you're going to get it again, and again, and 1,000 times over again.
Again and again and again and again.
Nice.
That's the sound of Fellcleave.
I keep thinking about, whenever we talk about Teleji here, it's not that common, but whenever we think about it, I think back to the cutscene, because the velocity of those swords on that little tiny Lala body equals diced potato, like someone in chat said.
Yum.
Data Roxas said that, and so I'm like, all right, who sewed the body back together? Down in Palace.
Well, body dump. Just dumped him in the Thanolin graves, and Nybeth was like, yoink.
Yep. Nybeth pulls out his sewing kit.
Yep.
I can fix this. It's like I've had worse.
I've had worse.
He probably has had this year.
Eorzeans need to really think about cremation from now on.
Yeah, in a world where undeading is real.
Yeah. For real.
But what about the gentlemen, huh? The gentle dead men.
Those are okay.
They get a...
So the next one is Eoland Quiveron. The former head of Frondal's Faunistry, the ex-syndicate member, was thought to have perished in the calamity. Rumors have circulated ever since that she was actually assassinated by rival monitorists, but this has never been proven. She calls out for Damiolo, son of the former guildmaster Faustigant, who is under the Fonestry's care due to a mysterious sleeping sickness that lasted most of his childhood. I think this was another like 1.0 kind of cutscene. If not, I'm not sure I remember it. But this is another kind of like old cutscene.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't recognize this one, and I've recognized them all so far except the other 1.0.
Was this a I did not do Ulda for ARR. I was a Grudania and Limsa main.
This sounds like it was a pre-ARR cutscene.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've done all 3 intros on different characters.
So his quote down there is, Damiolo, please open your eyes.
Also, the like sleeping disorder thing sounds familiar from some stuff I was reading up on 1.0 on Menphilia's backstory and Flamine's involvement. I was reading up on Acid's big surprise.
This next one is Livia Sas Unius.
Really quick, there is a Tumblr by someone named Winterdeep Elegy, and then said original character NPC Spotlight Aeolond Quiveron. Aeolond died during the calamity and was later replaced by Godbert Vanderville as the 6th wealthiest person in Ul'dah.
Oh, so died during the calamity would imply...
This is an ARR, a pre-ARR. This was a 1.0 character.
Yep.
Also, just realized why Quiveron sounds so familiar.
Right.
There is the Quiveron Manse, all the Quiveron people in a little... Is it a side quest, a fate? Something up in central Thanaland, kind of to the east of Blackbrush.
I think I remember that,
I know what you're talking about, and I want to go to the map, but I can't.
I just know I've gone up there to do some quest or other and been attacked by 30 of the dang guards up there, and it's so...
Yep.
I think it's hunts on low-level characters, actually.
Livia Sas Unius. Orphaned as a child, she was separated from her sister Lucia and taken under the care of Gaius van Baelsar, a family friend. As she grew into adulthood, she began to see Gaius as more than an adoptive parent and joined the military to remain close to and please him. During the Eorzean campaign, she led the attack on the Waking Sands that saw many Scions of the Seventh Dawn mercilessly slaughtered. During the final stages of Operation Archon, she perished defending the gates of the Praetorium against the Warrior of Light, unwilling to bear the thought of having Lord Van Baelsar taken from her. Down in the House of the Dead, she's known as the Jaundiced Tribunus, and her final quote is, Lord Gaius, I'm coming. And I know Bonnie's there saying giggity, so...
No, so in response to Data saying, didn't they try to retcon their relationship with, and then Midnight with the weapon storyline? The English version is the only one where they had that kind of like gross,
that was
semi-incestuous relationship. It doesn't exist in all the other ones.
They were more the English one kind of added this angle that none of the others had, and they were kind of just realizing, wait, we shouldn't have done that, and stepped back from it more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But most of us here play in English, so we don't necessarily know that unless you go hunting for it.
Yeah.
That's right. The next one is Rititin Sas Arvina. After Rititin's homeland was conquered by a Garlean campaign led by Gaius van Baelsar, he watched as the Empire's order led his people to an age of peace and stability. Truly believing that the world would be better off under imperial rule, he joined the 14th Legion to earn his citizenship and was eventually raised to the position of Praefectus Castorum, the highest position a non-Garlean can achieve, under the Black Wolf himself. Despite his brilliance as a field tactician, however, not all true-born Garleans were willing to respect the Rogadin on merit alone, as was the Legatus. Yet even face-to-face with the Warrior of Light, the Rogadin did not flinch from his duty, and he was struck down at Cape Westwind in the final days of Operation Archon. His quote down there is, "Lord Van Balsar, even in death, I serve." He's known as the Flyblown Prefectus. I've actually seen screenshots of him down there. He looks exactly the same. So yes, you can still fight him. The next one is Captain Madison. Madison was the captain of the Serpent Reaver crew out of western Lenosia, near the Sahagin spawning grounds themselves. His base, once a hideout of the legendary pirate Mistbeard himself, could be accessed from the sea or through the Sestasha Sea Grot or until the area was purged in one of the Warrior of Light's first adventures. For this failure, Madison was tempered by Leviathan to such a frequency and degree that their corporeal forms became twisted and they took on forms akin to creatures of the sea. Even in death, he bears this kraken-like visage. His quote down there is, "No, I can't die, not like this." The next one we have is Oranos. Oranos was the father of Gyges the Great, a leader amongst the Hecatoncheires, whose ancestors, slaves of Ulda's Thorn dynasty, had been trapped inside the Copperbell mines since an uprising 3 centuries past, whereby the magic helms that once controlled them ceased to function. Ulda would have been content to have these sins forgotten until their horrifying revelation that the Hecatoncheires and their rage survived. In one of the Warrior of Light's early adventures, many of these pitiful giants, including Gyges, were finally put out of their misery in a mission to secure Copperbell once more. Regrettably, however, several of those who answered the call of the Adventurers Guild lost their lives in the attempt. And see Dolores, Bear, Kikina, and Manfa. And not long thereafter did a horde of Hecatoncheires, led by Oranos, emerge from the darkest recesses of the mines to take their revenge. Down there, his quote is, "Slaves no more." Yes, you can actually fight Oranos down there.
I haven't seen that one. That's interesting. And that's very poignant, too, because the whole Copperbell quest line. Well, I remember when I finally got my sister into the game, she's like, "Wait, do I have to do this? These people enslaved these guys, and now they got free and they're mad about it. Do I have to do this?" I'm like, "Well, do you want to advance the story?" It's very it's very much they do the conflicting needs thing from the start, especially with things like the Sapsa spawning grounds, because these Sahagins spawning grounds have been destroyed, so they have to have someone. The conflicting needs thing has been here from the beginning.
It has. Next one we have is Simon the Unsinkable. Simon was the brother of the smith Diamanda, who is currently working to restore Pharaoh Sirius. His sister long believed that he was simply lost at sea, as the Maelstrom and Mimidoa had kept his fate secret. However, once the Warrior of Light purged the siren from the lighthouse, the truth was revealed. His soul had been claimed by the creature and forced to live as one of her undead minions. His quote down there is, "Dying a third time. Forgive me, Diamanda."
Oh.
So you actually fight him in Pharaoh Sirius, I think, hard mode? Again, he's a lich. He can bring bodies from... Yep.
He may also be able to animate people that don't look too bad and send them out to do his bidding or whatever. I'm not sure.
Exactly. So now we're going into some weird ones here. The Black Eft. The Black Eft was the name of a Magitech Reaper that acted as the first boss of Castrum Meridianum. Its pilot was slain in battle with the Warrior of Light during the final stages of Operation Archon. its actual NPC name is called the Corrupted Centurion, and its quote is, "I must find the Black Eft."
Interesting. That was an early boss in Meridian Castrum, wasn't it?
Yep, it was the first boss. So you actually killed the pilot, and the pilot is down there. That's right. The next one is Clodenbeim de Hylinar. These third son of House
That was it.
Hylinar, who perished shortly after the calamity in the battle for Steel Vigil against Svara and Safat. His honorable sacrifice allowed for some of his men to escape with their lives. I don't believe he is ever seen again in game, though. I think he was just in the using a fate or just the storyline. But his quote down there is called Leninat Francel, I wish you all.
Oh.
And this last one is called the Black Marketeer. The Black Marketeer was a minor NPC in the Rogue story arc. This eccentric information broker was murdered by a rogue faction of the Bloody Executioners, one of the 3 great pirate crews of Limsa Lominsa, after becoming entangled in their assassination attempt of Chief Admiral Merlwib Blowswain. The quote down there is called "Yahaha, the dark returns to dark."
Yeah. Like
Okay,
that?
Those are pretty much all of the NPCs that you can find down there. There could be more. Those are just the only ones that are known. Again, they have very small, very slim drop rates. I wouldn't say drop rates, but show rates, spawn rates. And so who knows? I mean, it's been years since Palace of the Dead was introduced. We still have people going through it day and night. There could be another notable NPC that spawns, and we can add another one to the list. I just think it's crazy that Nybeth was able to pull all these people from everywhere. I mean, we're talking, like I said earlier, the boss from Pharaoh Sirius. Meaning he can pull all the way from, is that Western Lenosia?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, there's something about a ridiculous amount of tunnels beneath Eorzea that were used to fairy bodies, which makes me really curious about said tunnels, of course, but...
The whole planet's hollow. It's also interesting to me that, again, Nybeth was doing this not for, like, funsies. He was trying to resurrect his lost love, right?
That's correct.
Another one of those, love gone too far. Learning to let go versus when to let go and when to hold on.
It makes me wonder, in some ways, if the 14 team just watches too much Metal Alchemist.
Okay, Full Metal Alchemist. That's what I was thinking when I saw Edda was missing an eye. I'm like, did she sacrifice her eye in order to bring his soul back? That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
The argument worked for Gaia.
I mean, that is true. That is really true.
Where do you think the Garleans, like, toss their dead? Do they just throw them in the Sea of Cerulean and just, hope they freeze over and reuse them as fuel?
Maybe.
God, that was dark.
Roxas,
Immolation would be a cool way to go.
OBS has bars, so I do not know what the problem is. I'm sorry.
Regarding the tunnels, I do want to mention something on Palace of the Dead. In the subterranean city of Gelmora, And deep within a forgotten corner of Islam Har, stout-hearted explorers have uncovered the entrance to a labyrinth dungeon. Those who set foot inside its maddening halls find their vigor drained by an irresistible fog of innervation, and in repeated excursions have failed to map its seemingly inconstant architecture. After hearing chilling accounts of spectral denizens, locals took to the whispers of a palace of the dead, and the wood whalers now seek the assistance of adventurers laying bare its haunted secrets.
Aptly named.
I'm also going to go into Gilmore too, since this has relation to it. Gilmore was an ancient civilization that predated Gridania in 14. They were predominantly subterranean, responsible for the construction of the 4 dungeons beneath the Black Shroud, Moontoy Cellars, Temtar Deepcroft, the 1,000 Maws of Totorak, and the Palace of the Dead. They had only one above-ground structure to anyone's knowledge, the Gilmore Ruins near Lasthold. They spent their time underground in fear of the Ixal and the wrath of the elementals. And their history is after the wanton misuse of etheric energies that led to the Great Flood of the 6th Umbral Era. Magic became a forbidden art, which you obviously know. And the elementals of the Twelveswood would not suffer the presence of mankind. Driven underground, the Hyr and the Elizin grew to accept one another in the subterranean cities of Gelmora. At long last, the Gelmorans learned to communicate and cooperate with the elementals, bringing about the dawn of Conjury, as we know it, as well as the earliest Pajal. As the people once more migrated to the forests above, they founded Gridania, and for centuries, a tense but stable peace had been retained between mankind and the elementals with the help of the Pajal and the Hearers, conjurers who could hear the elementals' words. The underground structures of Gelmora fell into disuse and now fester with hostile Vilekin and Seedkin. The Gelmora ruins are of particular significance to the Duskwhite Elizin. Given their physiology and social distrust, it is likely they remained within Gelmora longer than the Wildwood and adapted to the darkness.
It's a neat bit of...
It's really neat.
Some of you guys have actually gone through some of the locations mentioned. For instance, the Moontoy Cellars. There's only one part of that shroud that you can go into, the Moontoy Cellars. It's possibly the only part of the Gelmora civilization to see continued use. The Moontoy Cellars are a labyrinth of passages and chambers used for making alcohol, particularly the Moontoy brew. The cellars, labeled in Eorzean in the 1.0 maps, each have unique sites with vats, bags of grain, or other wine-related things. Having fallen into disuse, the Moontoy Cellar were home to squirrels, wolves, and Yarzons, among other things. But after the calamity, the Order of the Twin Adder cleared the vermin out. People have returned to the cellars to resume Moontoy brew production, which is notably used in cooking. In A Realm Reborn, very little is seen of the cellars. It is most notable at this point for being the primary passage point between the eastern and southern parts of the Shroud. There's a locked door that likely leads to the remainder of the place, but like the Tamtar Deepcroft, it is likely they have undergone drastic layout changes. It is possible this door will be opened in future patches, or the closed-off area may be featured as an instance dungeon.
That would be interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing more Gilmore. I want more Duskwhite lore.
Big same.
Yeah, same.
I'm kind of hoping we might get some with the upcoming raid or 24-man series, honestly.
It's totally possible. And you know, the way that raid key art is designed, it really makes me think it's under the wedding chapel.
That'd be cool.
Would be cool. Like, yeah, we're going to postpone this for a little bit. You can still have your weddings, but there's a lot of crap underneath the ground, so be careful, you know. Kupo.
That'd be amazing.
To have some kind of eldritch horror, you know, instead of the Kupos for the wedding.
Oh, then I'll have to get married.
Right.
Oh no.
Let's try.
The quote-unquote Gilmore Ruins. Before the calamity, the Gilmore Ruins were the only above-ground Gilmorean structure known to players. This landmark was one that few have ever seen in person, and it was near the ethereal gate of Lasthold, one of the most treacherous parts of the Black Shroud. It was teeming with Malboros and Fs above level 70, and occasionally visited by XIV fencers. So now we're going into 1.0 stuff.
Yeah. In fact, I want to bring up a slide of the cellars.
Go ahead. I'll continue talking. The Gilmore Ruins consisted of a large platform with a 15 to 20 yalm hole in the middle, surrounded by columns. If they were not ruined already, the Calamity made sure that they matched their name, and now the entire platform is upset, half-buried, and utterly shattered. The small amber figures that surrounded the hole at regular intervals led much player speculation of tonberries, but these have curiously disappeared, and tonberries are now featured as the main enemies in the Wanderer's Palace in Lenosia, on the opposite side of Eorzea. The ruins are now guarded by very manageable treants around level 37. The ruins of Issamhar were once Gilmore's residential district. The Calamity tore a hole open leading into the ruins, and excavators have already built a ladder into them. A man named Rolandi seeks to restore them for use by the Duskwights so that they need no longer commit crimes to make ends meet.
I have to just interject for humor purposes. Issamhar always throws me off because it sounds Arabic and it makes it's Ism is an Arabic word for name and Har is the Arabic word for hot. It makes no sense, but it sounds Arabic.
No, please give us your input. It's totally fine.
It's just interesting because I can't I'm sure it's supposed to mean something, but my brain's just like, no, we already know what this means, even though it makes no sense.
Going back to the Tamtara Deepcroft, I'm just gonna kind of go back and compare the 1.0 versus the 2.0. Version 1.0, a large plant called the Caretaker ran its roots, collectively larger than most tree trunks in Black Shroud, through the first and second rings of this ancient necropolis, or rather the elementals therein, watched over the slumbering dead and the numerous tombs branching off from its main tunnels.
No, I find that interesting because there's a lot of big tree roots at certain levels of Palace of the Dead, too. Wonder if that's related.
Palace of the Dead is a very curious place. Larger tombs contain the sarcophagi of prominent figures in the Gilmorean civilization. On the second ring, there are the largest tombs, where the noble houses of Ak-Inik, Ak-Mena, and King Galvanth the Dominator rested. There were also unmarked tombs. The undead who walked there were likely servants, as is the case of the ARR version. The first ring crawled with pooks, but floating eyes, wild boars, and even toads had taken up residence there since its abandonment. Makot toad poachers here are either protective of their hunting ground or wary of anyone who might engage them as enemies of the Black Shroud. Realm Reborn kind of changed this around a little bit, though. The Tamtara Deepcroft was changed dramatically in the new version. Rather than 2 floors of claustrophobic tunnels, the halls of the Deepcroft are now shown as dug out from the sides of an enormous cavern, with a broken ramp spiraling down to a platform below. Though the ramp itself has broken, the lower areas can be reached by traveling through the winding halls and broken walls. The zombies here, known as the Ak-Inik and Ak-Mena Verlets, Lancers and Thaumaturges, are the servants of those 2 houses, but the true threats are the depraved Lambs of Dalamud that have begun their demon-summoning rituals. Adventurers are completing the dungeon, interrupt the ceremony, which leads to the incomplete revival of Galvanth the Dominator, who curses his twisted Mind Flayer form.
Oops.
So that's an interesting one. That you get to see you get to know that Galvin the Dominator was originally part of the Gilmore civilization.
It is interesting to see the differences between the 1.0 version.
I miss old Thanalan, honestly. Same. Yeah, same. It was hell to navigate at first, but ugh. Yeah, the vibe was so good. Especially with the creepy music that I still love. Me too.
Time for everyone's favorite dungeon. The 1,000 Maws of Totorak.
Oh yeah. I forgot to get one of the little things. We have to go back, guys.
Named after a man-eating creature from Pajali folklore, the 1,000 Maws of Totorak was built on the site of a natural cave system beneath the Silent Arbor. Until recently, it held all of Gridania's foulest criminals from arsonists to poachers, but the completion of newer jail closer to the city heralded its abandonment. Whether or not this jail originated in the time of Galmora, it's clearly built using the same subterranean architectural methods, particularly the stonemasonry that is practically absent in wood structures in Gridania. As the etheric levels were far too high before the calamity, adventurers were only permitted to enter for no longer than 30 minutes, but since the restrictions have lifted. There are notes written along the walls detailing the demise of an investigation team and the gradual... Oh, hold on. Of the demise of an investigation team and the gradual derangement of their leader, though most of them are now lost in the caved-in portions. Before the calamity, the Garlean Empire set up devices that blocked off certain tunnels with force fields, each operated by 4 photocells, which have been scattered throughout the dungeon. Adventurers often come here for the rewards for slaying one of 3 Dyremite bosses, as the rare equipment can be redeemed for Grand Company seals. Now it is a necessary part of the story, of course. Yeah. Imagine getting Leveling Roulette and getting only Arm Veil.
That happened when I was leveling Black Mage.
I was gonna say, I don't understand the problem. Every time I do Leveling Roulette, I get a free, and it takes like 5 minutes. And that's what the cut. No, you can't have it. Get your...
So yeah, that kind of goes over Edda, Palace of the Dead, Nybeth, and the kind of surrounding area that encompasses Palace. The whole area there is very interesting, and I highly suggest you guys kind of go on a field trip of the area and just kind of discover things yourselves. There's a lot of lore and a lot of interesting things to discover through Gridania that you may not see otherwise, just kind of riding by and doing quests and fates and all that.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a cool thing about Gridania, because on the surface it seems very pretty, happy, nice woodlands, but if you actually it's actually quite dark stuff in the storyline, and especially if you get into the elementals, because the elementals are very inhuman in a way, very kind of alien in their way of thinking, and the fact that they can't truly communicate with people except in like these emotional impressions kind of thing. So it's a very interesting, like, it looks pretty, and then under the surface it's kind of eerie, and then you get into Galmora and it's really eerie.
I would even
It's
go
great.
beyond eerie. Like, the elementals are brutal in a way that's utterly inhuman, and they will wreck your face if you don't make some sort of weird blood pact that makes your children grow horns.
They're very much like somewhat like forces of nature, which I mean,
Yes.
okay, they're elementals. Shut up.
Yeah.
What I mean in the way that you can't like look at a tornado headed towards your house and be like, look,
Be nice,
I've
tornado.
had a really rough year. I can't afford for you to destroy my house. I need you to go somewhere else. And I'll be like, oh, sure, I'm sorry. It's just a force of nature.
It's interesting, though, that we only see these types of entities in this level of magnitude in the Black Shroud.
Yeah, it feeds into some of my theories about when you get enough life ether and all together and the effects that it has.
Makes me wonder why there's nothing of the sort in Mordona. With the amount of ether that's there.
Looks at Silver Tear.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't as much life.
There's not life ether.
And I don't know if that makes a difference or not. I feel like actually having the ether be out and not as part of living things, because all living things, have ether in them that's flowing, and if the ether stops, you die, like with Black Rose. So like having that ether be alive, maybe, just a guess here, maybe is a good thing, and having it just be floating around is not.
You have to wonder whether Edda, if she had not turned to madness, would have come to us as kind of like a scion in training.
I was going to say alternate universe Edda as
I mean, because we do have Hoary Boulder and a few of the other kind of like wannabe adventurers. They're a part of the Scions too, where they may not be as prominent or as powerful as the main team, but they still hold the fort and they still want to be like us. And so they can kind of carry on our legacy while we're away.
Yeah.
But the tale of Edda is one it's a tale of a bright beginning and a tale of tragedy. One that everyone who has not really looked into it yet or has not experienced it yet should go back and rediscover, kind of take a look at again. But that's all the time we have for today, at least. Does anyone have any closing comments?
Just a heads up to our viewers. With Endwalker on the horizon, we're probably going to take a 2-week break from the podcast in the later half of the month, so that people have a chance to do the MSQ and not have to worry about trying to catch a podcast, and so we can also complete the MSQ. We're probably going to play it by ear, whether it's a 2-week break or a 3-week break, depending on how long the MSQ actually ends up being. If you want to keep up to date on that, join our Discord, follow our Twitter. We'll be saying more there about what our upcoming schedules will be.
We will also follow our individual kind of Twitch channels, and you can also find us on Twitter individually. We will be also kind of streaming individually, so you can see our individual reactions there too.
This has been a really fun cast, guys.
Yeah, I'm loving the little horror element to it. It's a thing that I think I mentioned before in a different conversation, that Final Fantasy has all kinds of different kinds of storytelling. You want some really goofy over the top humor, you got Hildebrand. You want some creepy stuff, we got that.
We'll have more of that next week too. We got some more horror stories and more occult classics coming up next week.
All right, so I'll close out the stream. Thank you all for coming. Please follow our Discord. Please spread the word, and thank you for coming to episode 35.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Have a good day.
Bye.